space. Well, not really. Take two. Here, in the Mitten State. Welcome to Code 47, bringing you all things Star Trek, spanning the quadrants, the best thing since the neutral zone. With your co-captains, Charlie Carden and Alex Terry.
We are back, Trekkers and Trekkettes and beings of no genders. We're back for the Code 47 podcast on the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. I am your humble servant, Trek Lord of West Michigan, self-anointed, Captain Charlie Carden of the USS Grand Petoskey, joined as always by my partner in crime, Trek Lord of the North, the Jedi Pirate Captain of Lake Michigan, Commander, Acting Captain, Alex Terry. Alex, how the hell are you?
Cold in Western. Cold.
Oh, I hear that. Yeah, we're getting zapped by the fact that it's January here in Michigan, which is utterly unpredictable. A few days ago in Grand Rapids, where I live, it was 40 degrees. We lost all the snow. Today, it's gently falling and repopulating that snow. So you know what? The ebb, the flow. The wife and I remarked several times that we had a plow guy a couple of years ago. He was an older guy who just did it on his own, and we contacted him mid-season. We were like, "Hey, you want to come plow for us?" Because it was a bad winter. And then the last couple of years, we haven't done it at all because there's hardly a need. I mean, I don't know that there would be a week's worth of days that would fill up the amount of time that we actually needed to do plowing. But I digress, because this is fascinating weather conversation, I know.
We always start out with weather conversation in Michigan.
You're right, exactly. It's absolutely a Michigan thing. So anyway, let's talk about Star Trek. A little bit of housekeeping. I had talked a lot about the fact that we're going bi-weekly because there's no new Star Trek. So there's two sides to that. B, I decided I just can't be apart from Alex that much. It hurts my heart. We have to come in. We have to do this. That being said, we're going to broadcast this week. We're going to talk about the back half of the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. In our next exciting episode, we're going to talk about... Is that one of our special episodes? We have some special episodes coming up, but I do not have the calendar in front of me. However, 2 weeks from now, I have a personal obligation which is going to prevent us from recording. So we will be taking a break that week, but we will be back then full force. We have two special episodes planned. One is going to be working with a fellow chapter president, Joel, in Canada, to talk about the Holy Trilogy of Star Trek films, Star Treks 2, 3, and 4, that were, of course, a single story. And the one that is, I would think, most fondly remembered by any fan of the Star Trek films. And then I selected a Star Trek comic, which was actually Alex's idea to do, and I'm bringing in noted author Christopher Abbott, who lives in Connecticut, who is a big Star Trek and Star Wars guy, who was with us on Secret Friends Unite podcast just this past week. So we do have some stuff coming up, but we are going to continue to break down in halves seasons of the older Star Trek shows, kind of uninterrupted. Well, I should say interrupted, because we'll occasionally have a special episode until we get a new program, which right now we don't have any firm dates on programs. We've just been kind of told that the animated Nickelodeon program, Star Trek Prodigy, might be our next thing. But we're going to see, we're going to stay right on top of that. We do, of course, have some news to discuss after we get through this. But let's jump right on into it. So the back half of Star Trek: The Next Generation, early 1988, we are starting with episode 14, which is Angel 1. Actually, January 25, 1988. I hit it on the head without looking. The Enterprise visits a world dominated by women to rescue survivors of a downed freighter. Very Star Trek-ish kind of plot, jumping in to rescue some people who are lost. But
Riker wears a cod.
Riker wears a cod. The costuming in this episode is second to none. First of all, the women they're very tall. Think about a planet of Themyscirian Amazons, like from Wonder Woman. But yes. It's the 80s, so they all have really butchy hairstyles. Yeah, I mean, am I wrong? This gives us Riker. Riker, of course, continuing his first season tradition of being the Kirk of Star Trek: The Next Generation, gets with the head chick, the elected one, the head Amazon, as you were, while the women plus Data, who is androgynous for lack of a better term, go to seek out Ramsey, who is the captain of this freighter who escaped, and kind of talk them into leaving, which they don't want to leave because you know what? We've been here for 7 years. Some of us have taken wives, the guy says, and we don't want to go. But it turns into a scenario because the Amazons want these guys gone because they're disruptive to their society. And in the end, the Trek prevails using Trek ideas.
That was, in the long short, that was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I thought it was a cool episode, and of course love seeing. And of course you throw in your standard B plot of there's a virus on the Enterprise and everybody's sick, blah blah blah. That Crusher finds the antidote to this and that. First mention of the Romulans, I think, in this series, a full 10 episodes before we see them, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. So moving on, one of my favorite early episodes is the binary 11001001.
Do you know what that translates in binary code?
No, tell me, please.
E.
E as in enterprise? Or
That's
D?
what I.
Oh,
E.
you said E. Oh, well.
Yes.
Damn, you hit me up with some knowledge. But yeah, great episode. The Enterprise has to put into a starbase for some refurbishing. Their computer is going to be worked on by a race we've not seen before, known as the Binars. They come in pairs. They speak in a binary language. But their ultimate goal is they need to hornswoggle the Enterprise and its mobile computer to basically reboot their own planet, which is a short journey away. So in order to distract, while the bulk of the crew is on the starbase doing starbase stuff, Riker gets sucked into a holodeck update, which is so vastly real that you can imagine the cutscenes is him banging Minuet, which is the holodeck broad that he meets. That was hot as hell. But Picard gets stuck in there, and they ended up being the last two people on the ship. And they, after the Binars have created a fake warp core breach, and they stole they managed to get the ship away. Riker and Picard are forced to help them execute their mission, and all is well in the world. But yeah, that's some pretty hot stuff. I mean, February. So I was almost, this was right before my 12th birthday. So, kind of in my nascent years of going into puberty, being like, oh, really?
This episode always confused me because they are, first off, I love the noises that the Binars make, but it's obvious because they're advanced also. They probably have warp drive capabilities. All they had to do was ask.
I know, which is exactly that was in the closing line of the episode. Picard says you simply could have asked. There was a chance, and they reply, there was a chance that you could have said no. I think it was either Riker or Picard says, well, they think about it in a binary fashion. It's a 1 or a 0. It's a yes or a no, and they couldn't take the chance that the 1 would have been a 0. Or vice versa. So cool episode. And again, we get into a series of episodes here that again, maybe it's my nostalgia glasses looking back at it, but I enjoyed quite a few of them. There were a couple of really great plot lines. I like the plot line of this next one, too short a season. The Enterprise transports a legendary elderly, sickly admiral who's in a wheelchair who must again negotiate a hostage situation involving a man from decades earlier in his career. The admiral, however, mysteriously growing younger the farther the mission progresses. I love this one. Great twist at the end. So it's Admiral Mark Jameson, obviously named after my favorite beverage. As a good Irishman, of course. But he shows up on the Enterprise. He's crippled by, I think that it's funny how much of this stuff I remember off the top of my head. Iverson's disease, of which there's no cure. But he starts looking younger, and soon he can get up out of this wheelchair. And Beverly's like, what the F is going on? This is medically impossible. Come to find out that he is taking some wonder alien drug that he acquired from this planet he did a deal with. And he's desperate to lead this mission once they reach this planet and deal with now I'm already forgetting the name of the guy he's supposed to be dealing with. You remember the name of the villain of the episode?
I do not.
That's okay. You know what? The whole purpose of this is that you should go watch it. dear listener. But yeah, come to find out that the reason that Jameson is so driven to do this is that he essentially decided to fuck off with the Prime Directive, 40-something years earlier, and give weapons to both sides on the Civil War on this planet, which didn't end the Civil War. It just made the Civil War go on for 40 years and to kill millions upon millions of more people. So he's trying to make it right. And in the end, he, as a young man, he ends up face to face with, I think it's Mordan. Is it more? I don't know. Now it's going to drive me nuts. He ends up face to face with this actor, and it's funny, that actor. And there was kind of a parade of this because there was another one in the previous episode. Original series co-stars. He was the Klingon who was bad-mouthing the Enterprise in the bar in Trouble with Tribbles that Scotty decked. Same guy, Michael something or other is his name. But so in the end of it, our guy pays his ultimate price. And of course ends up saving the day, but gives his life for it. So kind of a great morality play. Like, hey, you know what? Sometimes when you decide to not play by the rules, it ends up biting you in the ass. There you go. Star Trek morality play at its best. So your any additional thoughts?
That one, I don't know. I mean, obviously season 1, everyone was still going through This Isn't My Track.
Yes, true.
This one actually, it was good, but it wasn't my favorite, but it was good. It was good. I much liked the next episode, Home Soil.
Oh, yes, indeed. Actually, When the Bow Breaks is the next episode. But
it's Home Soil.
Well, sir, not according to the list I've got here. I don't know what you're looking at, but I'll tell you what. We're going to go rogue and talk about Home Soil first. Yes, episode 18, Home Soil. The crew of the Enterprise discovers a crystalline life form with murderous intelligence that has been killing scientists on a terraforming project. So, again, like you said, a great morality play. The Enterprise shows up. These terraformers are like, or the head terraformer is like, well, I don't know what you're doing here, but blah, blah. And you really, we're busy and you got to get the fuck out of here. But why?
Terraformers are always like, fuck off.
They got their head so far up their own ass. We've been watching the show Veep lately. There was a great head so far up your own ass joke lately that I'm just struggling, like that you can spit out your own mouth or something. I don't know. It was something great. But that kind of reminds me of terraformers. Yeah. But what they're trying to hide is that they found out that during the laser drilling that they're doing, they've discovered a sentient microscopic life form that decides to fight back because it gets a hold of the computer. Then it gets itself onto the Enterprise, and the Enterprise and the crew ultimately brokers a peace between the terraformers and the new life form. So very typical Star Trek fashion. So yeah, I dug it. And again, doing a lot of morality plays, but again, like you said, it's season 1, and like season 1 of the vast majority of shows, in particular of genre shows, they're floundering around trying to kind of find their voice. And that's what ends up happening. But now we'll tip it backwards and go to episode 17. This one was a big miss for me. Something that tried to capitalize on one of the things that was really different about the Enterprise D, which was the fact that there was a huge civilian population with children. Episode 17, When the Bow Breaks, a planet formerly existing only in legend, uncloaks and requests help from the Enterprise. The planet's inhabitants are sterile and want to adopt the children from the Enterprise by force if necessary. So you got this vastly, highly technical, mythical planet that they've in the end of it, you find that they've been sterilized by this machine, the custodian, that runs their world and can cloak their world and push the Enterprise away with the technology blast and all this different stuff. So they just decide, hey, we want your kids. The Enterprise people say, fuck you, we're not giving you our kids. And then they say, well, we're just going to take what we were trying to be civil, but fuck you.
They'll say, whoa, you can't take our kids, but you know what? We'll give you Wesley.
Well, and they ended up taking Wesley, which was a mistake because this was one of the certainly biggest early examples of Wesley saving the day. Because he figures out obviously this and that, and they got to shut the thing down, and that'll help, I think, reverse the sterilization. And then in the end of it, the crew goes their merry way. So again, kind of problem of the week kind of deal. So episode 19 gives us one of our best early Picard quotes which I'll tell you about in a minute. Wesley, again, is taking the Starfleet Academy entrance exam, and the senior staff are placed under investigation by Starfleet. Oh, you meet one of these really great examples of, you got a shifty admiral, or he appears to be throughout most of the episode, and you get his adjutant, who is an absolute fucking twat waffle. Oh my God, this guy's a dick. You know what I mean? So, yeah, Admiral Gregory Quinn beams on board. He's one of Picard's oldest friends. And he says, there's something going on, and we're got to investigate the crew, and I can't tell you what it is, but you got to deal with this guy, Dexter Remick, Lieutenant Commander Dexter Remick, his adjutant. He basically shakes down the crew. Everybody hates his guts. And in the end of it, it simply found out that the reason that the Admiral wanted to investigate in the first place is he wants to recruit Picard to run Starfleet Academy. Which Picard's like, well, then why were you fucking with my people? Oh, I just need to make sure everything was. I was like, you fucking dick. Why didn't you just have a rap with me, and because then we wouldn't have an episode, right? So, but we had a great Picard line in this episode, because Wesley takes his entrance exam. He's amongst four or five people. Only one of that crew, only the top performer in that group is going to be admitted to the academy, and it's not Wesley. Yeah. He ends up failing, some of the tests, and the ultimate of which is the psycho simulator, where he has to face his greatest fear, which was, I thought this was pretty deep. Almost 10 years earlier, Picard, while serving as captain of the Stargazer, had to make a choice between two trapped crewmen, and he could only save one of them. And he chose one, and the one he didn't choose was Wesley's father, and he died. And Wesley knows this, and he almost says it, but it's like the TAC officer Chang, who's the instructor who's administering the test, obviously knows, because that's how they selected the test. Which is, that's the ultimate kind of Kobayashi Maru, scenario that hopefully nobody ever has to face in real life. But I thought that was a great character insight into both Picard and into Wesley, who as time goes on would be a less important character because he leaves the show. Spoiler alert.
And that kills me, because you know what? When I was watching this originally, see, you're like a good bottle of Jameson. You got a couple years on me, okay? So when you were watching the binary episode, I was watching these. I was about 8 years old.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It was the replays, because they would play them in the afternoon, and I'd always watch them after school. Mm-hmm. And I loved me the Wesley episodes, where Wesley was a main character.
Right.
Because who the fuck didn't want to be a kid on the fucking Enterprise?
No kidding. God, with all that, fucking lock yourself in a holodeck and, or whatever, and just do shit, travel all over the galaxy. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, and for anyone listening to this who is on the fence about possibly joining up for Starfleet International, the entrance exams are not that hard.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all. Actually, they're a lot of fun when they're working properly.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Okay, sorry. Had to get that jab.
That's all right. Jiggity jab. That's okay. We're always in the process of trying to get things in the right way. So anyway, all right, moving on. Now we're on to episode 20. This is our first big Klingon blowout episode. So fugitive Klingons seek battle to hijack the Enterprise, asking Worf to join them. So not only our first real Klingon episode of the series, which in a way it's a benchmark to not only a lot of great Klingon episodes that follow within this series, but a big chunk of Deep Space Nine, which we'll talk about obviously once we get there. Once Worf joins that cast at the beginning of season 4, we get a lot of Klingon-ing, I should say. But at any rate, we got two Klingons, one of whom is played by actor Vaughn Armstrong, and this guy holds the record of playing I believe, until at least we get to the current incarnation of the Star Trek, because I don't believe we've seen him again. I don't know if he's still with us. I think he is. But this guy has played just about every major Klingon or major Star Trek alien race that exists. He's been a Cardassian, he's been a Klingon, he's been a Romulan, he's been a this, he's been a that. He was Admiral Forrest in Enterprise. He was just he's done it all. But anyway, this was his first role in Star Trek, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, you get a little picture into what Klingon culture looks like in the time being. And, shame on the Klingons for not having a little bit more style. Starfleet changed their uniforms like 4 or 5 times over a 100-year period, maybe more than that.
It's a season.
Yeah, well, I mean, but even just between the first Star Trek movie and then this episode. So I mean, which is when this Klingon outfit debuted. So what you tell me is that in 100 years, the Klingons never updated their look. They still wear the same shit. Where Star Trek has, kind of time and again, changed things up. So anyway, so I'm going to take a brief pause. I hate to do this because we never edit anything, but I set a stupid timer here. So hold on.
Well, I'd have to say that the reason why they have changed the Starfleet uniforms and not the Klingon uniforms is the cosplay costume companies found out that Captain Charlie Carden doesn't cosplay as a Klingon. So that's why they keep getting the Starfleet uniforms because they know, we'll get them.
He's gonna suck him up. He is. But anyway, there's some weird anachronisms in this episode that later get corrected. Like the Klingon bridge is just backlit with a Klingon symbol, and they refer to the Klingon homeworld as Kling, which I'm like, let's work on that because that really doesn't swing for me. But this was our first big Worf episode. He reveals a little tiny bit about his origin, the fact that he was raised by humans on a farming world, and that his adoptive father was in Starfleet. We learn a lot about that more down the road. So anyway, I thought it was a good episode. It was a lot. Yeah, a lot of action. Love seeing Tasha Yar, who we're winding down to her going bye-bye. Yeah, kind of a bummer. So, yeah, but I enjoyed it. So, moving on, I really love this one, The Arsenal of Freedom. Trapped on the... What I heard an Was there an Did you have another thought? I'm sorry.
Oh, no. I said The Arsenal of Freedom.
Freedom. Trapped on the surface of an abandoned planet, an away team becomes unwitting participants in the demonstration of an advanced weapon system. So I really enjoyed this episode. It had a kind of a good really an ABC story going on because you had Riker and away team beam down, and of course anything with Riker. We're nearing the effective end of my Rikering cosplay until we get to Star Trek Insurrection because he grows a beard in season 2. I hate facial hair on myself, drives me nuts. Plus, it looks like shit because my hair is a bunch of different colors. So when I cosplay Riker, as anybody who follows me on social media knows that I had a session last fall where I had my Riker jumpsuit and I dyed my hair, and I think I pulled it off. But my next project is to cosplay Riker in Insurrection because still no beard. I'll just have to dye the hair again. But to have that, I have components of that. That First Contact uniform on its way to me. I owned one in the past, but I shrank out of it when I lost all that weight. I look like David Byrne in it. You know what I mean? So I just had to get rid of it. So I do now have on the way to me the Kozermart, who is the brand that so many of us use through Bexagen, which is the vendor that so many of us use on eBay. It's on its way to me. But I digress. So yeah, I love that. I love that. This was a great benchmark for Geordi and other junior officers because Geordi has to take command while Picard beams down to the planet with Dr. Crusher to help out. And then they're being attacked in orbit by the same thing that's attacking them on the surface. So, yeah, I totally dug it. I think Geordi did a great job. He even had an obnoxious senior officer who tried to get in his business. And he basically told him to fuck off. And in the end of it, you also get a little piece of the Picard Crusher dynamic, just kind of like we saw back in The Naked Now when she was drunk and she was about to peel her clothes off and throw herself at him. It's always bubbling beneath the surface.
Nobody remembers that episode. No one remembers Beverly doing that in The Naked Now because everyone was found out that Data was programmable and he was basically. Yeah, he was basically an Android F-toy. Exactly. No, I gotcha. So I dug that episode. But we get into the next episode 22, which is Symbiosis. This one has a great little Easter egg at the end, which I don't know if you're familiar with. I'll stop short of saying it once we get there, and you let me know. But Picard tries to mediate a trade dispute between two neighboring planets, one of which is the sole supplier of a drug to treat the other's apparently fatal disease.
great early social commentary on this, including a Nancy Reagan style "Say No to Drugs" from Tasha Yar. So yeah, we find out that there's two planets, one of which seems like they're coked out of their fucking minds. They're like, and then you got the skeevy business people. These are two neighboring planets who are like, yeah, we're gonna hook us up. You got to give us the money. Oh, the freighter blew up. We're not going to give you the drug. And so you come to find out quite easily that centuries ago there was a disease that Planet B, the smart people, cured, and Planet C didn't cure because they didn't have the cure was on the other planet. So they, Planet A cured themselves. Planet B, they got them hooked, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll hook you up," because it was their sole source of income. So they're just fucking drug pushers, unrelentingly leeching off these other people. So
the president of Planet A was Pablo Escobar.
Oh God, big time. Holy shit! So, and it's interesting because the actual representative from Planet A is played by the same actor who was Joaquin who was Khan's right-hand man in Star Trek 2.
Yes.
And the guy from Planet B was the late Merritt Buttrick, who was David Marcus, Captain Kirk's son in Star Trek 2 and 3. So that was a weird combo. Don't you think, the two of them in the same episode? Again, on opposing sides. Just really bizarre. So, but yeah, you get this. Wesley says, I don't understand drug addiction. And, and then Tasha steps up and says, I grew up on a colony that was falling apart. People did drugs just to deal with their everyday life. And he's like, I don't get it. I'm like, oh my God. It was very heavy handed, but I was at that age that it wasn't necessarily something that I understood because, I didn't have any drug abuse in my family, or certainly personally, because again I was 12 years old, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't have been something. But that I thought that that really spoke to a lot of people, and it was later said by Tasha Yar, by Denise Crosby, who I had the pleasure of meeting in 2016 and interviewing on the radio back when I worked at Cumulus Media. I did read an interview once that she said, had there been more scenes like that one, or the one that is in the next episode, right before her big goodbye, that she probably would have wanted to stay, because her real reason for wanting to leave was that she felt that she had nothing to do as a character on a cast of 9 people, which makes sense. That's a lot of people for everybody to get a story. So, but then we get to the fact that this episode was filmed after the next episode, which is where she dies. There's an Easter egg at the end of this one. Are you familiar with it? Because I don't want to spoil it.
Yes.
Yes, do tell.
No, I'm not spoiling this for everybody.
Oh, are you saying we shouldn't say it at all?
Well, yes and no, because my whole thoughts on spoilers being a dick move. But if you haven't watched this and it came out in 88.
Yeah, 33 years ago.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead, please.
No. You go with us.
All right. So at the very end, when Picard and Beverly are walking out of the cargo bay after they said to the folks on Planet B, we're not going to help you out. You got to figure this shit out yourself, because they were relying on the Enterprise for parts for one of their freighters. So they're walking away, and Tasha was present in the scene. As the cargo bay doors close, you see Denise Crosby jut herself out, and she waves the camera as the doors close, because that was her final scene.
Yep.
Very, very touching. I liked it very much. Like I said, I liked it very much. And she was the first major character, major cast character to die on any Star Trek show. But that leads us into episode 23, which is it's my lucky number, but not a lucky number for Tasha Yar. So an evil tar-like creature holds Troy hostage on an alien world. During the rescue mission, one of the Enterprise senior staff is killed. That being Tasha Yar, which we said 50 times. So again, this episode starts off with Worf. And again, this ends Worf's season of just basically floating around the bridge and not having a job. You just kind of see him. He's kind of do at those 5 back councils at the back of the bridge. Exactly. They go on this mission. This skin of evil, Armus is his name. Kills Tasha with the wave of its power when she disobeys him, and subsequently. Worf is promoted to acting security chief. But yeah, it's and Riker gets enveloped by Armus, and this happened in real life. Jonathan Frakes tells a great story about. He says it was a pit of black sludge, which was Metamucil and black printer's ink. So he says, I looked at it naturally. He said, I'll just dive right in. And apparently, LeVar Burton looked at him and said, Frakes, I never would have done that. But that's why Frakes was the star. That's why only he and Patrick Stewart had top billing, because he was the star. That is a power move. That is why he is my guy. Well, one of many reasons. But at any rate, obviously, they win the day. Picard is able to out-negotiate Armus and rescue Counselor Troy and the pilot of the shuttle, Lieutenant Prieto. See, I remember weird details. But the thing that is most touching about, I would almost say it's the most standout moment of the season, is Tasha Yar's very conveniently filmed eulogy. Yeah. Where I know, that's like, well, and she kind of sets it up. She says, well, I know in my line of work it's very dangerous, so you're watching this because I've died and blah, 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 but it looks like she filmed it like last week,
Yeah.
But she goes around and she touches on her relationship with each one of the characters, and there's a very tight shot when she finishes speaking of Picard's face, and he says, just about to cry, he says, au revoir, Lieutenant. And I cry when I see that. I don't know about you. That's raw emotion, because it's not like he's been a Starfleet captain at this point for 30 something years. So it's not, and he was on the Stargazer for over 20 years, and he lost crew members all the time. He lost his best friend, Jack Crusher, Beverly's late husband. So he's lost people, but there's something about this loss that really, because he was a mentor, a father figure, and there was also some kind of weird sexual energy between the two of them. But yeah, it's like it was almost like he was losing a lover, a friend, and a daughter all in one fell swoop. So, and again, it's very early, and it's funny because this, and then you combine what you see in this next episode, is really starting to kind of pluck at the tapestry, which is funny because it's a later episode of the series Tapestry. You're kind of pulling on some of the strings that, Picard he's very bound up emotionally. He's been through a lot, and he's a lot more tightly wound than Captain Kirk, who just seemed to wear his arm on his sleeve and his dick out of his pants, so to speak. Where Picard is the exact opposite kind of character. So in episode 24, we'll always have Paris. Picard meets up with an old flame whose husband has been affected by an accident involving a dimensional experiment. So that's the sciencey part of it. Okay, yeah. So, and really, and in the end, Data solves that, and we don't really need to talk a lot about that. But for me, the A story is that, this was a woman from 25 years in Picard's past. He had an assignment on Earth, or he had some time on Earth, and it's funny because it's not the same woman in the season 7 episode. Her name was Miranda something or other, where he thought he fathered a child, but the whole thing was a setup because there was an adult child. The episode I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And he's recounting the story to Riker, and he's like, we were on Earth and we were there for a couple weeks and we were banging a lot because I knew we were leaving. It's like, Picard always got some puss when he was on furlough on Earth. I mean, let's face it, the guy, he may seem kind of bound up, but he's all about that, what. I respect that.
About the fourth glass of Chateau Picard, the panties.
So at any rate, the old flame in this is played by Michelle Phillips, of course, of the 60s band The Mamas and the Papas, and mother to China Phillips. Anyway, Wilson Phillips, which was an one-hit wonder a couple of years after this aired. So a very beautiful woman. So that was really played out. I think it was played out, and again, you learned a little bit more about Picard. Well, he is human, and he does have a past, and he has regrets, and he's able to rekindle a friendship with this woman, which I think is awesome. So, and they didn't do it skeevy like, the two of them, hooked up while her husband was incapacitated. Though I read that was a cut concept from the script. And I'm glad they cut it because I wouldn't really want that for him. That just doesn't really seem like him.
We already had enough seasons of Kirk.
Yeah, exactly. We don't need to. And then we got Riker, who's, Kirk Light or Kirk. I wouldn't say like, so I don't want to disrespect him, but, is kind of a junior to the concept. But, and anyway.
Squared.
Kirk squared, exactly. So we jump into the last couple episodes of the season, and this is this is the big gross out episode of early Star Trek. I will tell you. Episode 25 is Conspiracy. I love this episode. I actually really dig it because this is the first time ever in episodic Star Trek that there is a return to the planet Earth. Yep. Albeit the outside sets are simply stolen from Star Trek 4, because you get this outside shot of Starfleet headquarters on Earth in San Francisco, but the strange behavior of high-ranking officers, which earlier prompted the investigation of the crew in Coming of Age. So we're talking about, again, Admiral Quinn and Lieutenant Commander Dexter Remick, leads Picard to uncover a conspiracy within Starfleet. So yeah, this is also the episode which is the genesis of the name of this podcast, Code 47, which is broadcast in the teaser of this episode, is the captain's only frequency in Starfleet comm code. So Code 47, which again 47 is the gag Star Trek number because 47 comes up so often. But yeah, Code 47 is a captain's emergency frequency, and of course we are both captains. We both head up chapters of STI. So that kind of fits the bill. But at any rate, the gross out of it is that, they start to uncover Picard is getting a Code 47 from Walker Keel, who is his other old best friend, Jack Crusher being the other one, who calls him to a planet with some other captains and says, there's some weird shit going on. There's a bunch of shady deals, blah, 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 this and that. You got to watch your ass. Well, right after that meeting ends, Walker Keel's ship gets blown up. And
I wouldn't want to be one of Picard's besties.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a guy that, you want to avoid him for the sake of your own health. Literally. But, Picard says, hey, we got to go back to Earth. So they go back to Earth, and there's a bunch of admirals there, including Admiral Quinn, who says, yeah, you know what? The admiral say, hey, Picard, why don't you come down and we'll have a dinner and we'll talk about what brought you back to Earth. And Quinn says, I'm going to beam up and would love to see the ship and shit and whatever. And then there's this just great scene where he's in his, Picard's like, yeah, something shifty about him. He's saying to Riker, who's staying on the ship. So I want you to check it out, see what's going on. So he goes to Quinn's quarters, and he opens his case and there's a fucking weird bug in it, like moving around. It's an obvious prop. It's about the size of your hand. It's like, rawr, rawr. And so Riker walks in and says, hey, what's going on? He's like, well, what do you got in the case? He says, oh, it's something that I'd like to, show Dr. Crusher, or it's for you or whatever. And he says, well, I don't really think. And then Quinn beats the shit out of him. He's this old guy. He's throwing him around. And then Worf and Geordi shows up. He picks up Geordi and throws it through the fucking door. And then he whoops. He goes, now Klingon, it's just you and me. It's like Worf stands up, and thank God in these one pieces they didn't show him below the waist, because he had a boner, because this is what he was waiting. He's like, Rrr! Then he beats the shit out of Worf, and Crusher is so deft with the phaser, as you saw. She takes him out, and then that's when she discovers that what's really going on is these weird bug things basically crawl into a human body. They plant themselves at the base of the nag, basically the base of the skull, and they take over a humanoid body, give them super strength, whatever, blah blah blah. So in the end, they're like, well, if we, the old sci-fi trope, well, if we kill the mother creature, all the rest of them will die. So Riker fakes his way down there, pretending to be one of them, but then he rescues Picard, and they're chasing the last admiral through the hallway. And when you zap somebody, the bug crawls out of their mouth, which is gross. They don't make that part too gross. But this last bug that they shoot this admiral, he crawls out, and then he crawls into a room where who's sitting there in a chair playing on a big map? Well, it's Remick. It's the guy that everybody hates. He's the mother bug. Well, this is when shit goes off the rails, because what happens then, Alex?
It says something about sheer fucking hubris. Oh, that's years later.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, this Remick goes, we see peaceful coexistence with you. So Riker and Picard just say, zap, zap, zap. They zap this guy, and he fucking explodes. His head explodes, and then he falls down. He's either sitting or he falls down, and then his chest explodes, and it's like, what is going on here? And then what you do see is that in Remick, in his body cavity, is a giant-sized, like toddler-sized version of one of these bugs, and then they zap that as well. But his exploded body is still sitting in this chair. It's his legs and the lower part of his torso, and his arms are on the arms of the chair. And then all around him are little versions of these bugs. And it's like, Grr.
Think about this, 1980 on TV.
In the 80s, yeah. Big time. So this is one that shows up in articles. Episodes of Star Trek Next Generation that get dropped out of syndication. This one it was too gross. Ugh. I mean, no. Totally. So, but yeah, that was cool. Yeah, I love that. And you thought, oh man, that would have made a great season finale. Well, guess what? They got one more in them. So our season finale is episode 26, The Neutral Zone, which gives us kind of a good A-B story. The A story is a snoozer. The B story really introduces us to something that's going to be kicking some ass for the rest of the series. So derelict satellite is found containing cryogenically frozen humans from the 21st century as the Enterprise is sent to investigate the destruction of outposts near Romulan space. Now, forgive me, this actually gives us two really serious plot lines that are going to thread their way through the rest of not only this show, but shows to follow. So, yeah, we get an A plot line where Data beams over and there's some frozen people. And I never really understood the science of this. They were dead, but in being dead, they're frozen so that at some point in the future they can be thawed out and then cured of whatever killed them. I mean, is
this a crack at the Walt Disney theory?
I think, I never thought about it that way, but I think that makes perfect sense. I really like that. So anyway, that part of it is kind of disposable because you get the stereotypes, you get the panicky housewife, you get the power-hungry business dickwad, and then you get like the country music like if it was Garth Brooks, basically. Peter Allen Richard, I think is the actor's name, who just passed away, who was Hawkman or Manhawk or something in the Buck Rider show. He was the businessman, and I like that. And then the guy who played the country guy was a character actor that you've seen in a million billion things. Anyway, you kind of shove that to the side because who gives a shit? What's really going on is that the Romulans are making noise, and now the Enterprise has to go into the neutral zone and discover, and come face to face with the Romulans because there are outposts along the Federation zone that have been gutted. Like huge chunks ripped out of it. And we're going to find out near the end of season 2, so almost a year's later broadcast-wise, where that came from. And I don't even want to say it, but it starts with a B and ends with a G, and in the middle of it is org. It's kind of a big deal. So, but anyway, so yeah, the Enterprise charges into the neutral zone. They come face-to-face with the Romulan ship, and this was the first brand new, super cool model built for this show. Besides the Enterprise itself, this was the Romulan D-Deridex warship. Beautiful vessel, all green, big sweeping wings, actually larger than the Galaxy class Enterprise. But yeah, in this first shot of it, you were like, whoa. They spent, because again, we're back in the days of model building and practical effects. They were like, they spent some bucks on this thing. It was gorgeous. But yeah, we get our first Romulans. Of course, they decloak because we know from the original series that Romulans have the same cloaking technology as Klingons. But the face of the first Romulan that we see is the face that we really get to see a little bit more further on down the road. That's right. It is Mark Alaimo, who is Gul Dukat in Deep Space Nine, was our first 24th century actually the first Romulan, because we hadn't seen any in the movies until we get to Star Trek VI, which was a couple of years after this. So this was the first Romulan that we've seen since the female Romulan in the late the Enterprise incident episode of season 3 of the original series. The Romulan chick who had the hots for Spock, which of course we haven't talked about that. We'll get to that in the review of that season. But, even the Romulans, like the Klingons, they've undergone just a slight modification. Their bowl cut is a little bit more bowly. They have some ridges on their foreheads, and their ears are a little perkier. So they're a little different. But, man, they are Romulan all the way. They're really dickish. They're really arrogant. They're saying, hey, you know what? We don't know what's going on either, but fuck you, and we're back. And Audi 5000, then they take off. So Picard turns around and says, I think our lives got a lot more complicated. It's like running into your ex-girlfriend, and she wants you back, but she also wants to find a way to fuck you over and break up your marriage or something. So it's kind of like, it's great. But yeah, I thought it was great. It was a great way to send off the season. And again, season one as a whole, you look at genre shows overall, and we'll just focus on Star Trek in particular. The first season of this show and DS9 and Voyager, of which I know you're not a big fan, and really Enterprise by extension, all had peaks and valleys, but the peaks were high to Midland and the valleys were below the sea level. They were really down there. So they had some really bad episodes. I think DS9 might take the cake for that one, but we're going to talk about that in either next week or a couple of weeks.
That's fighting words right there.
You thought the first season of Deep Space Nine was great, is what you're saying.
I did. I did. And I mean, we can get into that, but
oh yeah. And we will.
It was so DS9 was my Trek.
And I'm with you in the final analysis. I think I loved DS9 really even more than this show just because of what it became. But not in the so no, we're off next week I think we're off next week. And then we have a special episode coming up where we're going to do the trilogy. And then we're going to come back and do the front half of Deep Space Nine. That's going to be middle of February. You're going to be seeing that. So you and I can cross swords verbally, not with our wieners, when we get to that and talk a little bit about it.
Don't cross the streams.
We're not crossing any damn streams. But yeah, there were peaks and valleys. There were episodes in this first season that I liked very much, but there were certainly out of 20, and again, this was back in the days of 26 episode seasons where streaming shows now have anywhere between 10 and 16 at the high end. So there's half as much to see, which in a lot of ways I think is better because you really tighten things up. You still get filler episodes, but you get less of them because there's less overall. So if the show is good, you will have good episodes. So so that's it. Any final thoughts about the season from you, Mr. Alex?
I loved season one. Like you said, there was peaks and valleys. Season two kind of messed me up like a car crash.
Yeah, I gotcha. There was, and plus it was season two was 22 episodes because it was shortened by the 1988 writer's strike, so they lost 4 episodes.
Which gave us Riker's beard.
It did give us Riker's beard, which is the thing that I will forever be irritated about because that robs me of a lot of Riker cosplay. It kind of bums me out. So when I cosplay in those outfits, I have to be somebody else. But I don't have to color my hair, which I also like. Because coloring my hair because I dyed my hair twice in 2020. The first time it was pretty dark and it was permanent and I thought I was going to want to stick with it, but then COVID hit and I realized I couldn't get my hair cut. So I just had April shave it off. I let it grow back. I realized that I wanted to do this photo shoot of season 1 Riker, so I knew I had to dye my hair again. And I thought I did a temporary one that was supposed to wash out in a couple of weeks. Turns out it did not. So I went to my girl and I had her cut it, not shave it all the way because barbershops were open again, but I had her cut it down pretty short. It is just now getting back to the point where it's normal, and I will never again dye my hair. I will simply use. I do have a couple of different varieties of hair like spray and hair color that I will use instead when necessary. But other than that, I was to say the Silver Fox is here to stay.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, this dude is full of shit. he did that Riker cosplay, and he dyes his hair black, and he messages me something like, I think I tactically fucked up. This won't come out. I'm never doing this again. And then he goes to do another Riker cosplay, and he's like, guess what I'm doing? He sends me this picture. He's got a towel around his neck. Guess what I'm doing? I'm like, you are not going to dye your hair again. He's like, yeah. I'm like, bro, you said you weren't doing it again. And you're like, well, I love cosplaying Riker. This one isn't permanent. And then for the next 6 weeks, I laughed at him because he's like, I thought it was temporary.
You got me. All right. Moving on. we
friends with you.
I know. I'm a laugh a minute. I know it. Moving on, wrapping up the show, we have a couple of different news stories to talk about in our Starfleet dispatches. Recent interview with Michael Dorn, Mr. Worf, of course. He pitches a Captain Worf show, explains what it would take to do Star Trek. While I would love to see Michael Dorn again, I'm kind of, and this was a story from just a few days ago, we're kind of flying in the face of, it isn't real news. It's just another actor talking about what they would like to do, and that's okay. That's okay. He says, when he's asked, what is your latest elevator pitch? He says the script I wrote was, instead of looking at the Klingon Empire from Starfleet, we look at Starfleet from the Klingon Empire. Now that, I think, has shades of flipping the script and doing something different, which again, not only do you and I, as people who are fans of progressive storytelling and seeing new things done, and we love Star Trek overall, like there are no excuses.
Yeah.
Is something that would send the neckbeards into furor, because again, it wouldn't be Star Trek enough to be, just like Picard isn't. It's fucking Picard is not Star Trek enough, or Lower Decks is too jokey. Star Trek is not supposed to be fun.
Neckbeards.
This would be very interesting because again. Yes. You're going to take the Klingons and you're going to see, well, what's their perspective? I think that would be great. And again, I think overall it's great to know that he's still interested in coming back, because again, you get someone like Avery Brooks, who is, by the way, fucking insane. April and I were having this conversation yesterday because I'm watching that front half of DS9 to get ready for, our episode about that. And April was watching him saying, my God, he's so great in this role. And I said, yeah, but he's a fucking lunatic in real life. He has just absolutely gone off the reservation. It's glad to hear that Michael Dorn is still interested in coming back and doing the role, but he says it does sufficiently have to be something juicy for him to want to do that 3.5 hours of makeup it takes to become the character. So
I think my 2 cents, I would say bring him back for Picard. Mm-hmm. See how he's aged with the prosthetics and the makeup, and then take it from there. But regardless, Captain Worf would be very, very old.
Right. And Klingons, they're one of those races that they age at weird periods, because again, he had a son who went from age 0 to age 13 in like 4 years. And then you see other Klingons who are like, I'm 120 years old. So it's like, Jesus Christ. Yet they're a warrior culture and they expect to die in battle. So you don't really expect many of them, unless they're really super duper badasses, to live to be that old. So you don't know. So you're right. I'd like to follow this, but I'd like to see him come back in Picard and see how much gravitas he really has to still do Worf, or if it would just suck to see him as Worf again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so anybody out there, the comments about Avery going off res, if you want to see this dude off res,
off his meds,
go watch the documentary What We Left Behind.
Yeah, and those are even older clips.
Man,
I thought those were older clips. I don't remember, because I've seen it too. I don't remember them getting him for that. Were they just did older clips?
Yeah, they were older clips of him.
And he's still nuts.
And he's batshit crazy.
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh, anyway, so sorry. This is an opportunity for you to jump on Twitter, which I'll talk about in a minute, and tell us that we're either right or we're wrong about Avery Brooks. Maybe Avery Brooks will find. Oh, maybe he's crazy on Twitter like Trump was, and he'll find us. Oh God. Oh no. All right.
We started a war.
Started a war, yes, with a crazy guy. Oh my goodness. But anyway, let me wrap it up with this story. So this has been news for several weeks now, but actually a couple of months now. But we now have a date that is happening. CBS All Access, which is now home to the branded Star Trek universe, which I absolutely love because it's a blossoming variety of different shows, plus all the older content, plus things that you hate like Star Trek the Animated Series, which we are going to review. We are going to break it down. I know. But you know what? We have to do it. My goal for this show is that by when it's all said and done, that we have touched every single episode of Star Trek in all of the movies. That's my vision, as it were. But anyway,
touch over.
What's that? To touch the butt? To touch the creator?
Star Trek all over.
Star Trek a big wide stream of Star Trek. But anyway, CBS All Access, which to me has never been the greatest name because CBS definitely conjures up images of crotchety old men doing crotchety old stuff, is becoming Paramount Plus. And so on March 4th. So really that's just a little over a month from now. I like this. Again, they have the logo of it. It's got Paramount in the classic font. And then it has the classic Paramount mountain with stars around it, which has been their logo for over a century, because they were one of the original movie studios. So I love this, and again, CBS All Access, as it were, came to encompass just a little bit, kind of right around, I think, midway through 2020, the Paramount Network, MTV, VH1, BET, Comedy Central, Smithsonian, Nickelodeon, which will give us Star Trek Prodigy, the animated project, and films from the Paramount Library. So they're taking it from being a little more nichey to just being, they're going nuts, they're going butts to nuts, so to speak, with Disney Plus as far as the kind of content and power they have. In some ways, even a little bigger, because they're bringing a lot of heritage content television-wise that really, even with the Fox acquisition, Disney Plus really can't go, pound for pound with. So this fires me up. And again, you have your wide variety of neckbeards who don't like it because it's too mouthy or whatever it is, but I don't give a shit. I think it's great. Yeah, it says last fall is when they made this initial announcement, but it was the date that we just got recently. So I'm all for it. I like Paramount Plus versus CBS All Access because CBS, like I said, just doesn't, the name of it just doesn't really do it for me, as it were.
Well, even before the name change, they've added so much content to it in the last week alone.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I was cruising through it today and I saw something that I put on my to-watch list because I haven't seen it since I was a kid. Nickelodeon's Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Well, yeah, exactly. I love it. Yeah,
it's a series.
Yeah, they're developing big hubs just like over on HBO. HBO Max, they have all the Studio Ghibli and they have the Warner Brothers, like the Looney Tunes hub. So it's like there's just a lot to be done with it. So yeah, this is the way of the future. So
it's the way.
This is the way. Well, hey, that is our show talking about season 1 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. So, Alex, take us up on out of here.
For more information about Starfleet International in Michigan and beyond, as possible Canada, please visit the USS Grand Petoskey on Facebook and or the USS Septarian on Facebook. The Code 47 podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network and is produced by the one, the only Todd Oxtra.
Woo, my little buddy. Friends, thank you as always for joining us. We are, of course, a part of the Secret Friends podcasting network, including great shows like Co-op Mode, talking about video games, the Holocron Chronicles, which talks about Star Wars, and of course, the original Secret Friends Unite, talking about geek culture at large with Todd Oxtra and myself. We've got a great store over on TeePublic, simply called Secret Friends Unite. Logoed shirts from all 4 of our programs are there. Logoed shirts from from SFI, from our club. We've got to get some swag going for your crew. You got to get a logo over to me so I can get a shirt up there for you.
I'll get on that.
All right, you're on that. But anyway, visit that. The great news is about your purchases there. The proceeds of that go directly back to the League of Enchantment, which is a Michigan-based charity that my wife and I belong to for a few years now that does outreach work for kids in Michigan hospital visits and things of that nature. Please hit us up over on Twitter at 47podcast and, of course, at Secret Friends U. If you think we're way off base about TNG Season 1 or talking about Avery Brooks, we want to hear about it. And by doing that, you can also get yourself a great prize from our digital prize closet. So hit us up on Twitter. That is all. Thank you again. I'm going to tell you, as always, that sharing is caring and to keep on trekking.
Be good to one another and live long and prosper.